All right, welcome back to another episode of Sharp Does Math. Today we're going to talk about subtracting unlike fractions. So for those of you who watched my previous video on adding unlike fractions, you're going to see a whole lot of the same steps, just with that change that we're now going to subtract numerators instead of adding them. All right, so I mentioned previously that when we talk about unlike fractions, again, we're looking at fractions with different numbers in the denominator. We have a 5, we have a 10. You can't do anything to add or subtract those until you make the denominator the same. Okay, so let me show you how to do that, and then we will subtract them. All right, so in my last video, I also said I think it's personally easier to line them up vertically. Okay, so I'm going to do that again. If you have no problem with the steps and you figure out how to do it horizontally, you do it your way. Okay, but I'm going to keep my 2/5 and I'm going to move my minus 1/10. I'm going to put that over here vertical again. I just think it's easier for me. Okay, so 2/5 minus 1/10 looks like that. And I got to get the denominators the same first. So you got to think, if I'm looking for a multiple of both that's the same, what would it be? So you can think about it, or we can list them out here also. So 5 times 1 is 5. 5 times 2 is 10. 5 times 3 is 15. I'm going to stop there. I could keep going. Okay? For 10, 1 times 10 is 10. And I'm going to stop there. And hopefully you see why. They both have a multiple of 10. Both 5 and 10 have a multiple of 10. So that's the number we're going to make our new denominator. Okay? So I'm going to make new fractions over here where I put my 10 in the denominator spot already. Okay? Now, we're making equivalent fractions to our original problem. So we're going to multiply both the denominator and the numerator by the same number to make equivalent fractions. Okay? So here, I had a 10 and I still have a 10. So I don't even need to multiply by anything. Okay? We could just leave it as is. Or if you're going to multiply, which, if you want to run through the steps, you're just multiplying it by 1. 10 times 1 is equal to 10. Anything times 1 is going to stay the same. Okay? So if I multiply by 1 here, I have to multiply by 1 in the same numerator. 1 times 1 is 1. Boom. All right? That fraction stayed the same. Here, I have a 5, but I need it to become a 10. So you're thinking about multiplication. 5 times what would give you 10? So I know my math facts. Hopefully you do too. I know 5 times 2 is equal to 10, right? So if I multiply by 2 here in the denominator, I need to multiply by 2 here in the numerator, right? So 5 times 2 gave me 10. 2 times 2 gives me 4. And now I have like fractions. I have fractions with a same number in the denominator. And again, just like the last video, if you watched it, now we're just subtracting instead of adding. Okay, so my denominator 10 is going to stay the same. All right? And now I just go 4 minus 1, taking my numerators, 4 minus 1, and that's 3. And that's it, 3/10. That's already in simplest form. Okay, so step 1, you have to make the denominator the same. You have to find a common multiple to use. Once you have the same number in the denominator, then you can subtract, okay? And make sure it's in simplest form. All right, let's do one more. Let's see here. Let's take, let's go with 5. Now let's go 3/4. And we're going to subtract 3/16. 3/16, right? I don't know about you, but looking at this, you might be like, this is tough. The numbers are way different here, but it's really not that hard. You just have to know your multiples. So again, I'm going to take my 3/16 and I'm going to write it vertically. Let me move this a little bit too. So here's my 3/4, and I'm subtracting 3/16. All right. So if I list out my multiples of 4, I could go 4 times 1 is 4, 8, 12, 16. Oh, I have a 16 down here, so we're going to use 16 again as our new denominator, right? Just like last problem, actually, 16 times 1 will stay 16. 3 times 1 gives you 3. Here, 4 times 4 will give us our new 16. And 3 times 4 is 12. Just remember, whatever you multiply by in the denominator, you have to do the same to the numerator. So in this fraction, I multiplied by 1. In this fraction, I multiplied both by 4. And that gives me the same denominator now. So now I'm ready to subtract. So I can look at this and go, all right, I have 16. 12 minus 3 is 9. And I can't simplify that because 9 is 1 times 9 and 3 times 3. Here we have 1 times 16, 2 times 8, 4 times 4. And none of these numbers are the same except for the 1, which makes this simplest form. And you are done. 9/16. Okay. I do want to show you one more problem because in both cases our denominator here just stayed the same. You were multiplying it by 1. So let me just show you a different example where things might have to change a little bit. Okay. So let's say I have something like 3/4 and I want to subtract 2/5. 3/4 minus 2/5. Okay. Now in this case, right, 4 can't be multiplied to get 5. So we're going to have to change both. All right. So I'm going to go ahead and list out my multiples for you so you can see what I'm doing. If I do 4 times 1, that's 4. 4 times 2, 8. 4 times 3, 12. 16, 20. And I'm going to stop right there. Because if I do my multiples of 5, 5 times 1 is 5. 5 times 2 is 10. 5 times 3, 15. 5 times 4, 20. And here you can see we have our first common multiple. Okay? So we're going to use 20 as our new denominator. Right? So just keep that number 20 in mind. And I'm going to make our new fractions over here with 20 in the denominator. Okay? Here we're multiplying. So 5 times 4 gives me that 20. And since I multiplied by 4 here, we're going to multiply by 4 in the numerator also. So 2 times 4 is 8. Right? A little better. 4 times 5 gives us 20. So if I multiply by 5 in the denominator, multiply by 5 in the numerator, 3 times 5 equals 15. Again, now we have equivalent fractions with 20 in the denominator. 2/5 is equivalent to 8/20. 3/4 is equivalent to 15/20. They're the same value. Okay, now we just have the same denominator. So now we can subtract, okay? 20 is going to stay our denominator. 15 minus 8 is 7. And that's in simplest form. So that's subtracting unlike fractions. Hope you learned something new today, and I'll see you next time. Peace.